స్పీకర్ తో మాట్లాడారా?
ఎస్ సార్, ఇప్పుడే మేడం కాల్ చేసినాను సార్.
మేడం చెప్తున్నాను. Good morning, madam.
Good morning. Very good morning.
Good morning, madam.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yes, madam. Good morning, madam.
Good morning.
Good morning, Usha
Azadi
madam.
sir, namaste.
Good morning, madam.
గుడ్ మార్నింగ్ మేడం. గుడ్ మార్నింగ్ మేడం.
Usha madam.
Yes, sir, namaste.
Namaste, namaste, madam.
Thank you for joining.
శుభోదయం.
Thank you, sir. I've asked the resource person to join. He will be joining us within a few seconds. Hello, Patrick.
Ma'am, good morning. I put it on a mute mode.
Good morning.
Yeah.
YouTube live is also started, madam.
ప్రొఫెసర్ శ్రీనివాసులు గారు నమస్కారం అండి. అచలపతి హియర్.
Sir, namaste.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir. So, as the resource person has arrived, can we start the program?
Yeah, man.
Naresh, Dr. Naresh.
Yeah.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
మిగతా వాళ్ళందరినీ మ్యూట్ చేయండి ఎవరన్నా.
Venkat?
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Dear
Yeah, good morning.
One second, sir. Please unmute yourself, dear participants. Please unmute yourself, please.
Mute. Let them mute.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So myself, Dr. Naresh Reddy, Associate Professor, Department of Commerce, Osman University. I welcome all the delegates and participants from various parts of the country. So it is my honor to invite today's speaker and the functionaries from the ICSSR, especially Professor V. Ushakaran, Honorary Director, ICSSR SRC, Hyderabad, and from Indian Accounting Association, especially Hyderabad branch, Professor K.V. Achalapati, Dr. A. Patrick, and other members from the IAA. So this is an important talk now, which is going to deliver by Professor K. Srinivasulu. This is related to the India's independence after the completion of the 75 years. This is the high time to know what the country which is achieved in different fields, maybe agriculture, it may be industry, it may be service sector, education, like. Now this lecture is titled as the India after independence, mapping the 75 years of journey. So today we have with us Professor K. Srinivasulu, and from the IAA, Professor D. Obul Reddy Garu, President, IAA Hyderabad branch. EC members, IAA Hyderabad, Professor V. Appa Rao, Junior President, Indian Accounting Association. So Professor Ushakaran, Honorary Director, ICSSR SRC, and General Secretary, IAA Hyderabad branch. Venkatesh, co-opted EC member, Dr. Jacob, ICSSR SRC, and various participants and delegates. So before going to invite the today's speaker, I request Professor V. Ushakaran Madam to speak few words on this occasion.
Thank you, Dr. Naresh, for the introduction about the program. on behalf of the ICSSR SRC and also on behalf of the Indian Accounting Association Hyderabad branch, I invite all the participants and also the resource person, the staff at ICSSR, my colleagues in the department, Dr. Patrick, and all others, IAA members, and various participants who have attended many programs of ICSSR. Further, these people are from various fields, and also importantly, the resource person, Professor Srinivasulu. This particular program is designed with a view that every organization in India and every home in India is going to celebrate the Independence Day. Excuse me. Independence Day in such a way that we have completed 75 years. So we have to just look back and see what we have done in all these years. And also it gives immense pleasure for the SRC to conduct this program, because as a part of Azadi Ka Amruth Mahostav, we have been doing various programs like, we are conducting seminars, and we are organizing invited talks like this, and also we are encouraging many others to participate. We have identified a few freedom fighters also, and we have taken out as to what were their contributions towards the freedom struggle. So in this context, as we are nearing the day, the D-Day, that is August 15th, we thought it would be an appropriate occasion for all of us to celebrate this Diamond Jubilee, that is 75 years completion of independence. Therefore, with the association of IAA, I have planned for this program. So I'm not able to speak. So let me invite you once again for this talk, and I hope you will get lots of inputs from Professor Srinivasulu, because he is the authority in this particular subject. Therefore, we have chosen him. Thank you very much. Dr. Naresh.
Yeah, thank you, madam. Before going to invite the speaker, I invite Professor K.V. Achalpati, former Dean, Head and Chairman, Board of Studies, Department of Commerce, Usman City, to speak few words on this occasion.
Thank you, Dr. Naresh Reddy. He is the person who is organized as a convener of this particular program. Professor Usha, Senior Professor Usha Kiran, Honorary Director, ICSSR, SRC, and also General Secretary of the Indian Accounting Association Hyderabad chapter. Today's main resource person, Professor K. Srinivasulu, and all other IAA members, and also the guests to the program. At the outset, I congratulate the Indian Accounting Association Hyderabad chapter, because as a founder member of the Hyderabad chapter, I feel proud that our IAA Hyderabad chapter is taking part in the 75th Azadi Ka Amruth Mahotsav. That's a great decision the General Secretary has taken, because we need to show how the changes have been taking place. We have been arranging good number of lectures in accounting field, but what changes that are taking place in general, and the title also, the resource person has chosen an excellent title, India After Independence, Mapping the 75 Years of Journey. You can view it from the political point of view, economics point of view, accounting point of view, culture point of view. The perspective can be different. Let us say the value system has moved earlier from the simple living, high thinking, to the high living and also high thinking. I don't say thinking has come down, because I am not a pessimist. So that is a change I can say in the value system that has taken place. People are not believing in simple living, but definitely they are not also thinking that the thinking level has gone up a lot. The technology has changed the lives of the people. People have moved away from the libraries to the internet. Today, libraries are becoming archaeological instruments virtually as such. And we find the change in the life of the people from the, what do you say, teacher oriented to the self-study oriented. Earlier, teacher was a substitute for hard work. Today, teacher is not a substitute. Teacher is not a substitute for self-study. People are believing more Google rather than the subject experts. In fact, we have good number of jokes where people are going to the doctor and saying, well, they are not talking about the symptoms they are having, but they are talking about the disease they are having by looking to the Google, and they are asking doctor to prescribe the drug because they cannot get the drug from the pharma. Similarly, in accounting, we have moved away from the descriptive system to the prescriptive system. We are no more under the descriptive system. Today, accounting system is clearly prescriptive, and the prescription comes from the stakeholders. What the stakeholders are expecting, your accounting system has to be undergo a change. That is a change in 75 years I have observed. And one more point I would like to say, that the system is changed politically, economically. If you look into it, originally we were in free economy. From free economy where only private industry survived, from there we moved into the controlled economy. From controlled economy to the joint sector economy. From joint sector economy, again, we are going to the market economy, and U-turn that has taken place. We have become consumption oriented, consumer oriented, and we have faced the Malthusian theory of population, of heavy population, to the today we have the demographic dividend. So economically, we have become stronger because of the service sector. The U-turn that has taken place, the service sector is playing a significant role, and global village, the technology changes that have made the global village for the employment sake as such. However, the disparate, that the difference between the poor continues to be, poor and rich continues to be there, and that threatens the social conflicts and interactions. Anyway, I am not really competent to speak much. It is Professor Srinivasulu, former Dean Faculty of Social Sciences. I am very much eager to listen to him and learn a lot from the party. And I am very happy that people have logged in from different sources. I am very happy to participate in this festival of Azadi Ka Amruth Mahostav. Thank you very much, Dr. Naresh.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your few words on this occasion. Before inviting the speaker, I want to say a few words about the speaker. Sir, we know very well about you, and we have witnessed it in the UGC HRDC in so many lectures. So we are very happy, sir, for accepting our invitation to be part of this program, Azadi Ka Amruth Mahotsav. So Professor Srinivasulu is a senior fellow ICSSR, a retired professor from the Department of Political Science, former head and former chairman, Board of Studies, and a former Dean Social Sciences, Usman University. So sir has done his MA Political Science in 1981, MPhil 1984, and PhD 1988 from the Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. So sir has published so many articles in the reputed national and international journals, monographs also published, books, authored many books. So with these few words, sir, we welcome you to the today's talk on the India after independence, mapping the 75 years of journey. So we are eagerly waiting for your talk, sir. Thank you for the acceptance. So this is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The chair, Professor Usha Kiran Garu, Honorary Director, SRC, ICSSR, Professor Gobul Reddy, Professor Apparao, Professor Achalapati, Dr. Naresh Reddy, Mr. Venkatesh, Dr. Jacob, ladies and gentlemen. I'm thankful to Professor Usha Kiran Garu and SRC ICSSR for this opportunity to speak on 75 years of our journey as an independent sovereign nation, which we are celebrating today as Azadi Ka Amruth Mahostav. Every nation needs to look back and review its journey, where it began, how it began, where it is at that particular juncture, and what its destination is, or aims at reaching, and what the destination ought to be, so as to look forward and move ahead. So I congratulate the SRC ICSSR for this initiative and effort to be part of a great discursive tradition, which to my mind is essential for our imagination, which needs to be intellectually enlivened and strengthened. To begin with, the theme raises an important question. If we are interested in assessing, analyzing the 75 years of journey, we need to ask certain basic questions. The basic question is, what should be the theoretical and theoretical basis and methodological premises on which such an exercise of reviewing and evaluating our collective journey can be undertaken. Generally, if you look at the intellectual tradition of the modern period, intellectual tradition engaging with the question of nation making, state making, one could identify two ways of evaluating and judging the trajectory of change and progress. One is identifying the criteria, principles, ideals for the evaluation, basically extraneously, in a very idealistic way, formulated through some intellectual and theoretical exercise. So here the criteria of evaluation emphasizes on the exteriority of the principles, criteria. To me, it would seem to be realistic to locate and find the basis of evaluation internally to the making of a nation, rather than abstractly from outside. So the logic of internality would be realistic and aesthetic mode of evaluation of the social, political trajectory of transformation, rather than the external causality reflecting abstractly from outside. If we accept this methodological position of internality, then the constitution of that nation becomes an important document to identify, to elaborate the idea and imagination of, in the context of India as a nation, spelling out the ideas, ideals, promises, possibilities. Okay, of course, the Constitution as the body of laws, procedures, protocols. Okay, would be the proper foundation for that kind of politico-theoretical intellectual exercise, which we are basically interested in undertaking today. So the Azadi Ka Amruth Mahostav is, to my mind, an apt occasion which provides us an opportunity to review how we have traveled this distance of 75 years and how we have performed vis-a-vis the vision of Constitution, the objectives enshrined in the Constitution, and what objectives could be achieved, where we are found wanting. Okay, what fresh ideas, goals, okay, could be set, okay, as the national development is an ongoing project. This we can do it by mapping the trajectory of this 75 years India's journey as an independent nation. Further, we should also keep in mind when we are attempting to undertake such an exercise is that we are discussing these issues, okay, at a time when, like most parts of the world, Indian society, economy, and politics, seen in the larger context of changing global equations, okay, is witnessing significant changes, which need to be critically examined and evaluated. As I said, vis-a-vis the ideals and imagination of India in the Indian Constitution. So what we shall try to do in the next hour or so is to reflect on certain concerns central to this exercise. The exercise of evaluation of the trajectory, continual trajectory of our national journey. Before that, I think it's necessary to sound a word of caution in the context of the present discussion. It's true. It's almost a truism to say that the task of mapping our post-independent journey is necessarily, okay, a difficult, if not impossible task. What could reasonably be aimed at and attempted in given 1 hour's time is to identify the major trends and tendencies, expectations and possibilities, whether realized or not realized, lost, and what are the future prospects and challenges, okay, that we could predict, we could imagine be facing us as a nation. In other words, what could reasonably be attempted is broadly a bird's eye view of the trajectory, a general macro view of the journey, not a worm's eye view of this journey. Okay. So for this exercise, I think we need to keep certain things in mind. Firstly, central to this kind of evaluation is the idea of India enshrined in the Constitution. And the Indian Constitution, this must be emphasized, is not a mere legal document. It's not a text of lawyers. It is a deeply political text, which acts as the basis of, consciously aims at acting as a basis of social and political transformation. So therefore, we need to treat it as a deeply political document rather than a mere legal document. Secondly, it would also be instructive to deliberate upon these 7.5 decades of journey, okay, based on certain critical criteria, critical principles. To begin with, the caution of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in his last speech addressed to the Constituent Assembly, which is called the life of contradictions, okay, provides certain basis for the self-evaluation, self-judgment of our journey, measured in terms of the goals, objectives, and ideals mentioned in the Constitution. And it's no exaggeration to say that this journey has not been a smooth one expectedly. It has seen its ups and downs. And that's quite natural for any social, political, human enterprise, so to say. And the most important disruption in this journey, as we are all aware, was the emergency. India for 21 months between June 1975 and March 1977 saw a major attack on the constitutional values and constitutional morality. And to my mind, the biggest lesson, okay, that could be drawn and continuously needs to be reminded was the necessity of the vigilance by the citizenry, because we could not afford the luxury of taking democracy for granted. Instead, democracy to be protected and guarded needed constant, continuous vigilance by the citizenry. Okay, and the threat to democracy and the right situation need not necessarily come from outside. It could come from the powers that be. Okay, therefore, that's the biggest takeaway from the experience of emergency. Since it's a very important landmark in our 75 years history, therefore I thought it's necessary to make a specific mention of it in the beginning of our discussion itself. The third important development which needs to be kept in view while assessing, evaluating our journey is the major landmark in the history of Indian political economy of development, that is the neoliberal economic reforms, okay, which initiated the new regime of political economy of development, okay, leading to not totally disrupting, but to some extent strengthening, consolidating the old patterns of domination, subordination, discrimination. But very interestingly, very importantly, very critically, initiating new forms of exclusion, marginalization. Okay, I mean, I don't need to go into details, just a specific mention of the special economic zones itself, which has opened up theaters of protest in different parts of the country, because almost every state in India was very enthusiastic to the SEZ policy initiative, becoming the site of protest and dissent. So therefore, neoliberal reforms, I mean, if one could broadly periodize India's 75 years history, one could, in a macro sense, one could identify two kinds of interesting periodizations. One is India before emergency. This is post-independent India. India before emergency, India after emergency. India before, in terms of the political economy, India before economic liberalization, India after economic liberalization. And finally, I think any attempt to evaluate our journey in terms of the constitution, constitutional morality and values must be wary of, because there is very frequent talk of changing the constitution. Okay, doubts being raised on the continual relevance of the 1950 constitution. Okay, this, in fact, it would not be out of place to suggest, necessitates us to remember and perhaps re-emphasize a very prompt and poignant question raised by President K. Narayan. Okay, he asked an important question, that is, before we talk about changing the constitution, revising the constitution, we must ask whether the constitution has failed us or we have failed the constitution. If it is, then in what ways? So there must be a critical assessment of that process. Okay, and the very fact that in the last 73 years of India as a republic with this new constitution, and this constitution has proved to be very flexible, open to amendability, open to adaptability to the changing terms. The very fact that there have been 105 amendments so far is a clear evidence of the flexibility, adaptability of Indian constitution. And it would not be far from true, it would not be an exaggeration to say that our experience with the 1950 constitution has been quite exciting, quite challenging, and sometimes it has been quite tumultuous also. Therefore, it requires to be revisited, debated, okay, bringing in the question of merits and strengths of the constitution, okay, and asserting the need for adhering to the constitutionality, constitutional morality. To my mind, which is a precondition for building a better, strong, democratic, stable and civilized India. So with these preparatory words, let us go into the central thing. So as I said that the constitutional vision of India must be the basis of our evaluation of this journey. So let us ask this fundamental question. What is the idea? What is the vision of India embodied in our constitution? And we are all familiar with the preamble of the constitution. And preamble makes a very clear statement of the constitutional vision of India. And it speaks on behalf of what it says, we the people of India, want to build India into a sovereign, democratic republic. And ideals that are emphasized, okay, to build India into a democratic society, because you cannot have a democratic polity without a democratic society, were justice, liberty, equality, with various dimensions of it, various facets of this. And most significantly, it talks about fraternity. So the term fraternity, okay, is not merely slogan, because you cannot build a nation without constructing, without cementing the individuals who constitute that nation into a fraternity, enforcing brotherhood, sense of affinity, okay, emotional, cultural, spiritual affinity. Therefore, Indian Constitution is a very important kind of document because it emphasizes that sociality as the basis of, okay, building India into a great nation, a strong nation. Okay. And to remind ourselves of this, that it's not just a scriptural authority. Constitution cannot be seen as mere scriptural, textual authority, but it's a live document, okay, with built-in flexibility. Now, if we take these ideals as constituting the imagination of India as a nation and nation state. Okay. Then it brings us to the second important question. That what ought to be the appropriate methodological principle on which we can assess the constitution, its strengths, and the scope for transformation of India. As I said earlier, the last speech of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, called Life of Contradictions, in fact spells out that methodological principle very clearly, which goes a long way in evaluating the history of India as a constitutionally administered, constitutionally directed, transforming society. The speech clearly says that with this constitution, okay, we are going to enter into a life of contradictions. What is a contradiction? That in political legal terms, okay, we are according one man, one value. Because by going for universal franchise, India has gone for one person. I mean, Ambedkar used the term man, but in today's context, perhaps we should use a neutral, gender neutral term like person. One person, one vote, one adult person, one vote, one value. This is the political, legal, or formal, okay, principle spelled out, enunciated in the Indian Constitution. But if you look at the social structure that India has inherited, okay, on the eve of independence, is a totally different kind of, okay, governed by a totally different kind of principle, where there is a very explicit substantive denial of one person, one value, because of the caste system, because of socio-economic, okay, historically inherited, sedimented structures of socio-economic inequality and domination. And Ambedkar suggests that if we do not bring the society in conformity with or in sync with this constitutional principle of one person, one value, then if not immediately, in the due process, okay, as people realize the rights given and promised by the Constitution, then this inequality, if it is allowed to persist, continue, then it might blow up the structure of political democracy, which this Constitution promises to build. So therefore, there is this contradiction between the socio-economic map of Indian society and the constitutional principle of one person, one value. Okay. In this context, I think we need to caution ourselves of two important issues. One is, what would happen when a highly egalitarian constitution is transposed onto a deeply inegalitarian socio-economic formation? Okay. This would point us to the contradiction, incompatibility between the constitutional legal logic and the social logic. Okay, we have seen the inability or the absence of enthusiasm to bring these two in sync with each other, okay, and give the confidence to the people, okay, has led to the collapse of modern nations, attempts to build modern states or nation states in large contexts of Asia, post-colonial world of Asia and Africa, even South America. So therefore, it might blow up, and result is a longish period of instability and anarchy. Second possibility which seems to be very proximate to the Indian experience, is that such a constitution with such an egalitarian logic could launch the nation onto the path of social transformation, which necessarily not easy. It's quite obvious, not necessarily smooth, but very protracted and difficult, posing overwhelming challenges, if not insurmountable challenges, but definitely very difficult challenges, you know. And the positive takeaway from our experience is that India's experience here with this project of democracy has been largely positive. As I said, this is in sharp contrast to the experience of most of the post-colonial societies of Asia and Africa. So therefore, when we are assessing our constitutional, political, social journey, I think we must emphasize that the Indian constitution could, to a large extent, catalyze social stirrings, opened up vast spaces of engagement and great possibilities of transformation. With the support of this constitution, people could fight for their rights and struggle for dignity, equality, and freedom. Therefore, Indian constitution can be seen as the source of change, not quite often from above, because constitution is a document, guiding, directing the state to formulate policies and its actions. But what Indian constitution has done is it opened up the possibilities of change from below, taking the spaces opened by the possibilities opened by the Indian constitution for the subaltern communities, classes to strive for change. That's an important. So therefore, it's a document not only from above, but it is also an agency of change from below. That's the point which. So now, as I said earlier, this journey is multidimensional, quite complex, not always smooth. It's quite arduous, undulating, in other words. So to map this journey is a very difficult task. So somewhere we need to limit ourselves to certain crucial issues and ideas, with which we can try to evaluate this. So therefore, what I thought appropriate in the present discussion is to identify three important crucial issues, which are central to, which in fact reflect the spirit of Indian Constitution. One. Secondly, these three crucial concepts, issues, are central to the creation of a modern nation state in India, which is the aim of the Indian Constitution. Firstly, the question of citizenship. Secondly, the question of representation, as part of democratic expansion. Thirdly, which is a very contested kind of thing, is the idea of federalism, ordering, regulating the relationship between two centers of power in modern Indian nation state, that's the center and state. So first, the idea of citizenship. We know that pre-independence India, in fact, was not one India. One could identify two Indias. One is the colonial India, the India which was part of the colonial state Secondly, you also have large parts of India which were princely, part of princely states. Okay, so you have colonial India, you have princely India. In both parts, people were not considered or treated as citizens. Basically, the people were treated as subjects. In the colonial India, whether it's British colonial India or French or Portuguese, in spite of the claims of these colonial powers to be the heartland of liberal democracy, great liberal democracy domestically, and also the claims of being modern power structures. The people of India were basically treated as colonized subjects and denied the rights. And whatever rights were there, I mean, to some extent, in some cases, the people in British India enjoyed greater civil liberties and to some extent political rights compared to the princely states. Okay, all these rights, I mean, whatever limited extent they were granted, were result of protracted people's struggles. Okay, in British India, but in contrast, in princely India, okay, the relationship was essentially one of the relationship between Raja and Praja. Okay, and native rulers being largely pre-modern and feudal. Okay, respecting no resemblance of following modern law or hardly having any institutions. Okay, embodying the spirit of modern law. Okay, so therefore the treatment of the people in the princely states as subjects, being at the mercy of the Raja. Okay, and the dismal civil and political rights scenario, as I said, even compared to the British India, stands as the evidence of crass servitude of the people here. Again, is this background of a generalized subjecthood of the people of India in the pre-independence India. We need to appreciate the value and the merit of the constitutional provision of citizenship granted by the Indian Constitution. Citizenship means rights, freedoms, and rule of law, that is equality before law, irrespective of our social position, irrespective of your endowments, access to resources, privileges. All the people, since they are citizens of India, all the citizens of India are equal before law. That's what we call rule of law. This is the first important, very, very revolutionary kind of break from the pre-independence India. Second important revolutionary initiative that we find following the Indian Constitution is going for universal adult franchise. Okay. That is the right, democratic right of the people, citizens, to elect their own representative. It's a very great. So one is granting citizenship with the rights and freedoms and equal law. Secondly, the provision of adult franchise. Okay. Now, if we look at the responses, both the even in the if you look at the debates within the Constituent Assembly, many, of course, the Constituent Assembly had great legal minds. Okay, luminaries were also spirited people in the sense that they had long experience of being part of the Indian nationalist movement. Even they had apprehensions about it. The basis for this apprehension is that can a country with high level of poverty and low level of literacy, okay, could sustain itself as a democratic nation? Okay, that means both the scholars, intellectuals, the large number of statesmen, political elite, and also interestingly, large number of Western scholars, okay, trying to study and understand the colonial world, not just India, Africa, Asia, and other parts, were very apprehensive about the possibility of this democratic experiment being successful. This project of nation state building possible in a country with high level of poverty and low level of literacy. And add to this the fact that that there is mind-boggling diversity in India, spatial, regional, social, cultural, religious diversity, which was mind-boggling. So they were expressing their diffidence, okay, that can such a diverse country, okay, hold itself together and be stable as a nation state. I mean, there's a very celebrated book brought out by a famous American sociologist, come anthropologist, Clifford Geertz, New States in Old Societies. The very title itself is suggestive of the paradox they were trying to highlight. This volume is a joint product of scholars specializing on Asia and Africa. I mean, the central argument of this text, okay, this collective text was to highlight the incompatibility of democratic experiment construction of modern nation in societies which are known for the absence of civic culture and the associated socialization implied by civic culture. And broadly, they argued and predicted that in the absence of clear civic culture and established practices of socialization and institutional structures embodying these values, okay, the democratic experiment would inevitably be a failure. Unfortunately, we must note that this prediction almost proved to be true in a large number of post-colonial states in Asia and Africa, which, as we know, ended up in anarchy and authoritarian regimes. But interestingly, okay, India has been a very notable exception to this theoretical and sociological formulation. I think we need to, I mean, even our neighbor, Pakistan, very soon, within a decade, okay, came under military dictatorship. Why India has been, in a sense, India has been an exceptional, illustrious exception to this general trend. I think this is because of the large-scale popular mobilization that happened as part of the nationalist movement on the one hand, and a large number of movements from below, civil society movements, social reform movements, peasant movements, tribal movements, caste movements that India has seen during the colonial period. In fact, the historian Ranjit Guha identifies around 156, if I remember number correctly, fairly organized and recorded movements. I mean, you can imagine the number of unrecorded, unnoticed, Okay, episodic movements could have been much larger. That shows the vibrancy of Indian society, and different strata of Indian society to the British colonial rule, and also a demonstration of the tradition of tolerance and community. Okay, emphasizing the principle of coexistence. The possibility of that in spite of this mind-boggling diversity and heterogeneity. So therefore, we must emphasize this, and not only emphasize, but celebrate the success of India on the front of citizenship in the context of Amruth Mahostav. Now let's go to the second issue, the issue pertaining to the question of representation. Okay, I'll just make a brief reference to the, since we are discussing in an academic, intellectual, institutional context. So therefore, I think it's appropriate to refer to or briefly review the existing scholarly position. If you look at the study of democratic politics in India, both by scholars living in India, scholars, foreign scholars, and Indian scholars working abroad, the literature, there is a vast accumulated literature, and they have identified a series of paradoxes in Indian politics and Indian society. I would just deal with the two important positions. One is what the argument, what can be called the degeneration of politics argument, which got built up mostly in the post-emergency period, 70s, 80s, 90s. We have seen a flourish of scholarly analysis, emphasizing that India has become a haven of corrupt, unprincipled politics. India has seen the process of depoliticization, de-ideologization. Okay, and there was a standard refrain in the political analysis of criminalization of politics. Okay, and all these writings, and the most important, I mean, if you like to identify one of the most important proponents of this kind of position of degeneration of politics, we could say the famous anthropologist Andre Bethe, in fact, went to the extent of arguing that what we have seen in the post-emergency period is nothing but a compromise on the constitutional morality. So therefore, there is a very well analytically laid kind of position, arguing that Indian politics has seen a degeneration, which is a black spot on the democratic record of India. The second position, which is, I think, related but equally cynical, is the decline of democracy argument, articulated by Professor Atul Kohli. He wrote 2-3 books on this issue, where he argues that democracy, okay, has declined in terms of its both logic and substance because of the compromise of institutions and okay. And one evidence of this in support of this thesis is that there have been rise of grassroots social movements, which were essentially demonstrating the declining legitimacy of Indian state and democracy. Now, I would take a slightly different position from this. I would argue that an alternative, entirely legitimate and logical alternative position is possible. That what we have seen in Indian political history, social history, is quite normal. Any society, okay, which is ridden by this conflicting logics of constitutionality and sociality in the course of expansion of democratic politics would undergo this process. Okay, you cannot impose an a priori theoretical model onto concrete experiments of democracy and say that any deviation is an instance of or illustration of the failure. To my mind, this both this logic of degeneration and thesis of degeneration and decline of democracy appear to be elitistic and seek to present a very sanitized view of politics. Okay, because I mean, one is not saying that there are no problems. In fact, we need to, on this occasion of Azadi ka Amruth Mahostav, we need to be very frankly critical of ourselves. Only then we can move forward in a very positive way. There are fault lines, there are serious ups and downs in this, but there is also a sign of hope because in the post-emergency period, we have seen a phenomenal participation of the lower orders of the society. And antipathically, very sadly, you have seen apathy on the part of the middle class, educated urban middle class have shown indifference to politics, whereas the so-called illiterate sections of the society, okay, the poorer sections of the Dalits, Adivasis, and other poorer sections of the society have shown enthusiasm towards the electoral politics and other forms of civil society politics. That clearly shows that there is very clear evidence of optimism, okay, on the part of large sections of the society towards Indian state and democracy. Now, but what are the fault lines? I mean, despite this optimism, we need to self-critically assess the fault lines. Firstly, there is no doubt that there is a very visible, ever increasing kind of ideological impoverishment seen among the political parties. And large number of political parties see politics essentially from the prism of electoral politics. In other words, the multifacetedness of politics, okay, which involves cultural politics, social politics, apart from electoral politics, is sought to be reduced essentially to electoral politics. As a result of which we see most of the social studying happening outside the realm of party system. The civil society could be seen expanding over these years. So there is a asymmetry between the political parties' way of looking at politics and the larger civil society's way of looking at it. This is the point which we need to, and we need to correct this asymmetry. Okay, otherwise it could have a very serious and long-term negative implications for the democratic system in India. Second important thing is that if you look at the morphology of the political and social morphology of Indian party system, okay, there is very clear evidence of the regional parties moving to the center of Indian politics. Okay, and unfortunately, which is being debated today very vigorously, is that most of these parties, okay, almost it would not be an exact sure that there is hardly an exception to this rule, that these political parties are essentially dynastic, okay, headed by El Supremo, leader, and under the control of his family. And they control the political, social resources of the party. Now, the question it raises a fundamental question, that is, political parties are the instruments of democracy. So if the instrument of democracy is internally undemocratic, can it promise and pave way for larger democracy? That is the crucial, critical question, which is no longer a theoretical question. It's an importantly, crucially, critically, okay, a political question. Okay. And because of this dynastic nature and supremo controlled party structure, all the party functionaries, legislators become mere shadow of the supremo. Okay. And this has a very serious impact for the elite and intellectual participation in politics, because party is the instrument through which the political activists participate. So therefore, we need to give a serious thought to this. Thirdly, all these political parties, okay, because of this kind of internal structure, discourage independent opinion. Okay, and the party activists merely become loyalists. So therefore, after some time, you see some kind of stultification in the parties. Parties turn into dead wood when there is no new energy flowing into the party freely and participating in the decision making. What it happens, it becomes a shadow of its older self. Okay. So therefore, if parties have to be creative agency of change and democratic participation, there has to be internal democracy, internal exchange of independent exchange of free and independent flow and exchange of ideas. Okay. The fourth important thing, I mean, all these are important to understand the fault lines in the democratic function and also lopsidedness of real or possible lopsidedness of representativeness. Okay. The fourth point is that that in the last 2-3 decades, the rules of the electoral game have drastically changed. Okay, and the most important factor governing this is the phenomenal increase in the electoral expenditure. As a result of which, we see if you look at the profile of the contestants from different political parties, okay, there is a phenomenal increase in the rise of neoliberal and a neo-rich political class. You know, those who have made their fortunes, especially in the context of neoliberal economy, increasing participation of people who made fortunes in real estate and other businesses. Okay, because only that class of neo-rich would be able to meet that demand of expenditure, electoral expenditure. And needless to say, this has a cascading effect on the active, authentic, grassroots activists entering into the field of democratic representation. And the next point is that if you look at both the legislative debate and the public debate in general, okay, there is a visible impoverishment of this. Because of the absence of grassroots cadre activists entering into the legislative bodies. Secondly, because of the dynastic control of the parties. So therefore, all this leads to what can be called impoverishment of discursive politics, impoverishment of social politics. And there was a very interesting study done by a premier social science institute, the Center for Study of Developing Societies, New Delhi, which has been doing a series of studies since 1970s, revived in the 1990s. Okay, whereas part of the All India study, election study, they asked an important question, that is, which of these institutions, they identify some institutions, which of these institutions you trust most? And it's a scientifically studies based on scientifically drawn sample. Okay, and we see a very conspicuous assertion of trust deficit in most of the institutions, which are crucial, critical for the democratic functioning of a system. And I will not go into the details, just to illustrate the point that, I mean, it's easy to understand that the lowest trust was expressed in the police, because it is the police which is the manifesto of the state in everyday life. Just above that, the political parties, okay, only 39% of the respondents said that we trust the political parties. And you will be amazed, perhaps even shocked to know that the institution which got the highest number of respondents expressing trust in was the Election Commission. I mean, this is a very curious paradox. The parties which participate in the democratic process to guarantee better governance to the people, okay, that's the political parties, get 39% of the vote. Whereas the institution, which is just an instrument of conducting the elections, and after the election, it has no active role, that is the Election Commission, gets 62%. I mean, this is a very serious reflection of the people representative, okay, people government relationship, which the political class should take serious note of. Okay, I mean, no political system, no organization for that matter would, even a family, for instance, would not survive if there is trust deficit among the members of the family. So therefore, absence of trust. And another important thing that was noticed was a cultivated attitude of anti-politics among the educated and urban middle class. India is increasingly, as sociological studies clearly show, is increasingly becoming, at least aspiring to become a middle class society. Okay, in such a society, when the middle class constitute fairly conspicuous majority, the middle class has no interest in politics. Instead, has a cultivated kind of indifference to politics. That is very dangerous. So therefore, this trust deficit and indifference, okay, if not addressed earnestly and in time, I think it could have a very serious implication to the democratic process in the country. Now let us briefly visit the question of federalism. As we are aware, India is known for its socio-spatial diversity, linguistic heterogeneity, and cultural plurality. And combined with this are the question of differential exposure to modernity. Okay, as I said, between the colonial India and the princely India, which in fact also largely determine the logic of unevenness. Okay, unevenness in the political economy development, unevenness in the civic culture, unevenness broadly in the social progress. Okay, so the task of forging unity and integrity of India as a nation is a huge, challenging task. Okay, and as I said earlier, the Constituent Assembly, in fact, highlight this anxiety. And one reason for the Constituent Assembly exercising its preference for a relatively strong center in our federal system was because of this apprehension and also apprehension of India's stability in view of this huge diversity and plurality. Secondly, also the kind of tense situation that prevailed following the partition for several years. Okay. Therefore, to appreciate the trajectory of our federal journey, I think it's necessary to pay attention to the political change in India. And for that, we need to have some idea of periodization. I mean, this is not uniform. There are different stages in this trajectory, of federal journey. So, I'll not go, I mean, we don't have that much of time to go into the details, but I think it would be fair to periodize Indian history, post-independent Indian history, into 4 phases. One is from 1947 to 77. It was period where Congress party was in command in center and in large number of states, and its control, domination in quite a number of states started declining after 1967. In 1967 elections, Congress was with a good number of North Indian Hindi belt states. Okay, but broadly, the period of 1947 to 77 could be seen as a period of high point of centralization. Then, for the first time in 1977, we have a non-Congress conglomerate in the name of Janata Party coming to power. Okay, so 77 to 89, okay, can be treated as a period of transition, a transitional period. And what is significant to understand India's federal journey is this period of 1989 to 2014, which was a period dominated by coalitional politics. Okay, large number of parties, and quite significantly regional parties becoming part of the formation of the federal government. Of course, 2014 onwards, many commentators argue that once again Indian politics is moving towards one dominant party system. And interestingly, if you look at even the scholarship on Indian politics, okay, most of the studies, I mean, I would cite one very important study done in the early 70s by Professor Maurice Jones. It's called Politics of India, where he asserts that the proper perspective to study Indian politics is to look from above, top-down view. So he takes the Indian Constitution as the frame and then tries to study Indian politics. But what has happened because of the changes that Indian politics and also political economy has seen since the post-emergency period is that the states have become an important kind of or central agency in the governance process and democratic politics in India, with the regional parties becoming very prominent. Okay, and because of the prominence of regional parties, you have a new discourse demanding a reorganization of center-state relations. Because if you look at pre-emergency period, the regional parties, wherever they were there, were treated as the sources of vociferous tendency. Regionalism is seen, demand for devolution is seen as a vociferous tendency by the Indira dominated political system. But in the post-emergency period, you see the regional parties getting increasingly, okay, a new kind of legitimacy. And in fact, since most of you are from Andhra Pradesh, so I would remind you that N.T. Rama Rao, the founder of the Telugu Desam Party, went to the extent of saying, I mean, which requires certain degree of courage to say, went to the extent of saying that center is a myth and states are reality. And Telugu Desam Party was perhaps, I stand for correction, one of the few regional parties which had a statement in their election manifestos on foreign policy. A regional party having a statement on the foreign policy. I mean, that shows the kind of, what I'm trying to draw your attention is that shows the kind of confidence that the changes in the Indian politics has given to the regional politics, regional economies, regional political parties. So therefore, I think we need to pay attention to this. And it would not be far from to say that there has been an increasing tendency of what can be called regionalization of Indian politics broadly. If in the first 2 decades you have nationization of Indian politics, because nation building, state building were on the agenda and agreed by everybody. What we see in the subsequent period is that nation building, state building is not seen as the prerogative of one national party, a few national parties. It is seen as something which are the legitimate spheres of even regional parties. Okay, this is one important change that we have to see in order to understand the federal trajectory of India. Second important thing is, which I suggested briefly, is the decisive shift in the Indian political economy from the state dirigento, state planned model to model of development to liberalization and privatization. And very interestingly, we see, especially from 90s onwards, states actively participating, okay, in the liberalization process. And AP, you would very well recollect, was the forefront of state level economic reforms. And this throws up the neoliberal policy process, in fact, throws up an interesting kind of curious kind of paradox with the centralizing logic of finance capital driven globalization process. Globalization is actually global finance capital driven one, okay, going against the are challenging the very grain of nation state and also the position of the regional states, okay, within that. So in this broad context of changing politics and political economy of India, we need to understand the federal question, and which has now been increasingly combined with the question of nationalism. The Hindutva discourse, okay, which seeks to be hegemonic by challenging the received dominant frame of nationalism drawn from the nationalist movement, could be seen rephrasing and rendering legitimacy to the centralization logic with some kind of notional singularity. And these developments, okay, have their echoes, implications, not only for democracy, not only for the state structure, but also to the questions of citizenship and also to the politics of representation. So I would conclude by saying that the unfolding processes promise to be increasingly contestatory, not only increasingly, but in very curious ways, contestatory, pregnant with the newer possibilities, which we can only wait upon and watch, and need to make sincere theoretical, intellectual effort to understand and theorize. I think I'll stop it here. Thank you very much for your patient hearing.
Thank you very much, sir, for the excellent lecture. I've been following it very keenly, and I can tell that each sentence of yours is a research question. So definitely, the way you have presented, along with the review of literature, that is, what the other people have said, it's truly excellent. That is what I feel. And the ICSSR, SRC, or ICSSR, all, it encourages the multidisciplinary approach. So definitely, your thoughts on democracy, on constitution, and how the Indian politics have been moving towards different phases, in different phases, that really brings out, because this forum is a forum where we have got the participants from all kinds of disciplines, cutting across the disciplines, the people have joined this lecture. So we have commerce people, we have political science, and we have so many others coming from different disciplines. And definitely they will take a clue from your lecture and mold that, some research can be really taken up, combining the democracy or the journey of 75 years with that of their discipline. So that would really give, a value for this lecture. So that is what I appeal to all the participants. So whoever are here, please do think about the multidisciplinary approach in your research. Answer the kind of questions what you have raised, especially the one like middle class going against the not joining, or not encouraging the politics, or not joining that particular point, and also the expenditure, electoral expenditure. All such things are the realities, with which genuinely we will have to think, especially the educationists like us. We'll have to bring out the awareness, I think, among people like us. We should not shed away from these things. Therefore, all these changes in the attitude definitely will make India a further strong India, and what we would like to see. And somehow I missed one point in the lecture. I think I was a little bit went out of concentration while dealing with the phases of the politics. What was the name you have given to the 14 to 22? Yes, that is 2014 to 2022.
Okay.
Because you said nationalization of politics and regionalization of politics, and what phase you can give, you can term this.
Shall I answer or take some questions and
Yeah.
Take some more
I started with the question itself.
no. Shall we take some more questions or shall I answer?
Yeah. Sir, answer this and later on.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for your interest in the lecture. Yeah. No, but I think globally there is, not only India, but large number of advanced democracies, like democracies in Europe, America. In the last couple of decades or so, there are a number of studies which very clearly show that there is increasing indifference towards political participation. Okay. It's curious to explore, but one could hypothesize by saying that perhaps there is an inverse relationship between prosperity and comfort and interest in politics. As we become prosperous and start leading comfortable life, okay, we tend to show some kind of indifference towards politics. I think if this logic sounds sound, then we can apply it to Indian also. We have seen within our circles, they're all middle class. Though we are busy discussing politics in our social circles, but when it comes to the question of going to the polling booth and exercising of franchise, there is some kind of negligence of that, And studies very clearly show that this indifference and negligence is increasing election after election. Interestingly, the political parties and politicians, prominent politicians, are appealing the middle class and especially the youth to show active interest in politics. Okay, so why there is this mismatch is an important question, and it's an important question not only for immediate politics, but for a long history of long future of any political system, and nation building process. Therefore, we must pay attention to this. And coming to the question of electoral expenditure, now if you look at the dominant discourse, almost everybody seems to be taking this as fait accompli. We cannot avoid it. I mean, in the course of our field work, we get to talk to a lot of politicians. And in fact, they indirectly, they appear to be defensive, but they also seem to be not inclined to make any change in this or make any effort towards changing this. They said, this is how things are, things would be. Therefore, we are forced to give tickets to the people who have the capacity to spend money. And in fact, most of you must be knowing that most of the political parties, in fact, demand the aspirant to deposit some money with the party, and also shows the money that you would be able to spend it. I understand, I come to know through field work that many people who participated in electoral process have even gone bankrupt by selling their properties and all that. So this is a very grave kind of situation. I mean, just out of curiosity, I will just give an example. For instance, when N.T. Ramarao started TDP in 1982-83, one old TDP activist told that during the electoral campaign, they used to have breakfast at home, go and campaign, come back for lunch, and again go and campaign. And at the most, if one of them was in a position to afford, would offer tea. But today, that is not the case. I mean, I've done a very conservative kind of, not very liberal, but very conservative, very cautious kind of estimate. And I found in one assembly constituency that the candidate had to spend around 5 crores. This is a minimal estimate, okay, in the course of 1 month's electoral campaign. It must be many, I mean, this was done almost a decade back, but it must be many more times now. And of course, it's difficult to authenticate it with any, as social scientists, we want documentary proof and evidence, but that's not possible. You have to go by the statements of people. Now, coming to the third interesting question about 2014 to 2022, I did not try to give a name to this because it's still an ongoing process. How it would manifest itself I mean, many people are hazarding predictions, but politics is a very dynamic process. Okay, and the politicians are so dynamic that they would very easily adopt themselves to change the course of action. But broadly, it would not be incorrect to suggest that this period, okay, last 8 years has shown an interest in changing the grand narrative of India as a nation from the earlier narrative, which is Congress-dominated narrative of India being a secular, democratic, pluralist country, to the narrative of Hindutva, Indian nationalism being Hindutva. So this Hindutva nationalist discourse could easily be seen aspiring to and largely reaching to the position of hegemony in Indian politics. That's point one. Secondly, logically implicit in this Hindutva imagination is that that of India being one nation, okay, and secondarizing, if not neglecting and precluding the diversity, but basically imparting primacy to the nation vis-a-vis its units. So therefore, the present establishment is clearly paving way for centralization of power and politics. That's why many commentators try to compare the present regime with that of Mrs. Gandhi's regime, pre-emergency, post-emergency. So therefore, 3 important things, in fact, characterize the present regime. One is a shift in the grand nationalist narrative. Secondly, imagination of India, assigning primacy to oneness. Thirdly, logically following from this, and also in a sense demonstrated by different policy initiatives, is a clear inclination to clear tendency to centralization. This is, of course, supported by, I mean, this is not something which is unique to India. Even if you look at American politics post September 11, we have seen the federal government accumulating huge powers because of the fact that the question of national security, being prioritized over other issues. So in India also you will see that kind of securitist preoccupation, which leads to logically leads to centralization of power. I think
Yes.
this should be okay. Yeah.
Any
I've been listening to you. Very nice, sir. Lot of insights. I'm Patrick from Commerce Department, sir.
Okay, yeah.
Sir, few things like, when you see the freedom part of it, Gandhiji has said that probably post-independence, it would be a shift from a white sahib to a brown sahib. I think with the kind of thing that you say, like middle class not participating and the electoral costs for somebody to represent and other things there, I think we had very few people like T.N. Seshan who had gone about with trying to go about with cleaning the mess which is associated with the electoral responsibility and other things, sir. And one more thing, sir, like, when I was reading Raghuram Rajan also today there, where he says that freedom is restricted to the elite and we have not gone about with taking it to the masses. There has been a wide inequality or disparity, especially access to public goods like health and education part of it. I think we have got a lot to look for it in future. I mean, we are celebrating an anniversary. It's a landmark that we have come to a diamond jubilee kind of a thing there. But the thing is, there's access to public necessities. I think probably if you can throw a little light on that, sir.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I must add a caveat to this brown sahib thing. It's not just a simple question of, I mean, initially in the first 2 decades, if you look at the social composition of Indian politics, it was dominated by the elite. In fact, I don't know how many of you have visited the parliament, but if you visit the parliament, it looks like the lawyer's building. The whole architecture would make a lawyer comfortable, not a peasant comfortable. But if you look at the social composition of the legislature, both the national and state legislature, the political elite, political representatives, social composition has changed phenomenally. So we cannot any longer say that it's dominated by the elite or few castes. There is a very significant kind of sociological elaboration of political leadership. That point cannot be. But what is in fact inhibiting this representative character is the very structure of Indian political system. The political parties do not allow these grassroots participants, the subaltern representatives, to express themselves. That is a major thing. So I think we need to have a serious debate on the dynastic, which Prime Minister has been repeatedly raising this very, very important issue, the dynastic and close nature of the political parties. And anybody who is familiar with the theory of elites, elite theory, would know that, Pareto very classically said that history is graveyard of elites. So if the elite elaboration gets stultified, gets stagnant, and then that would spell the, if not death, at least the decline of the political parties. And political parties should learn lessons from this very important theoretical insight. So therefore, I don't see much reason to be cynical of Indian politics being dominated by brown sahibs. Yes, in the early decades, but not. The second important thing is the Seshan thing. Sheshan is much glorified, glamorized kind of character. It's not to belittle his intervention, but any policy or political or social change would be sustainable only when there is popular participation. Just to give a quick example, look at the prohibition in Andhra Pradesh, which followed the glorious anti-Arab women's movement. But what has subsequently happened is that because of the absence of popular participation, it became basically an executive kind of design, and very soon failed. In fact, one day, Professor Vakil, I just went to the class and came to the classroom. Professor Vakil said, Srinivas, why don't you come with me? The government is conducting a dialogue. So it has invited us from political center. I said, I am not interested, you go. So he went. And he came back after a couple of hours and we were having lunch. Then he said, he's narrated a very interesting thing, which showed the interest of the political, ruling party to do away with the prohibition. The minister seems to have said that unless we have a policeman behind every drunkard, we won't be able to stop drinking. Then I jokingly said that Vakil Sahab, if the drunkard and policeman both join and start enjoying, what will happen? then Vakil said, that's why I asked you to come. You didn't come. You should have come. So that is the very sad irony of the situation. That's precisely because the fact that it's an executive kind of administrative kind of step. I think in the case of the session reform, it was seen as entirely the jurisdiction of Election Commission. But if it were to be assigned a popular participatory dimension and angle, I think things would have been. But if you look at the very political economy of development in the post-independence period, basically our development models are all bureaucratized models. There is no scope for popular participation, in spite of very protracted mass-based nationalist movement in India. I think I have coming to the question of poverty, deprivation. It's a fact. Studies clearly show that most of the countries which have gone for neoliberal reforms, have seen what could be called the process of primitive accumulation. That means the finance capital, global finance capital supported, the local capital, big capital collaborating with the global finance capital, has fastened the process of primitive accumulation, which means disposition of the primary commodity producers, the small producers, small traders in the unorganized, informal sector, have largely lost their initiative. As a result of which, they either have to join the lower rungs of unskilled, unorganized labor, or have to suffer from hunger and all that. Because we have seen a large number of suicides among the farmers, among the artisans, for instance. Andhra Pradesh was major some disturbance. Major location of handloom weaver suicides, for instance. So therefore, this neoliberal regime of policy regime has its impact. Privatization has its impact on the public education, public health. So I think we need to take this. It's not just the case of India alone. India is in a significant sense much better compared to large parts of Africa, for instance, where there is more or less total collapse of public institutions. Therefore, I agree with you that we need to critically debate it, and governments need to bring these concerns, because when large sections of the people suffer, and their emotional attachment with the system. They find themselves disenchanted with the system, which is dangerous for the democratic system. Therefore, I think it needs to be a matter of collective discussion and reflection. I agree with you.
Thank
That's
you,
a
sir.
brief
Thanks for
answer I
that
can
elaborate
give.
response you gave. And it was so nice recalling the Dynamo professor, FD Vakil, who was there with the political sciences earlier. I heard him when Professor Achalpati invited him to Mahbub Nagar long back, when I was a student there.
Okay.
Thank you so much, sir. It's been wonderful listening to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So,
He
thank
was
you,
a very
sir.
lively man.
Yeah.
Professor Achalpati sir, you wanted to ask some question. I think.
Sir, I want to ask one question.
Yeah.
So generally in finance class, we teach there are no free lunches.
Okay.
But there are so many freebies are the political leaders are offering even today for the purpose of winning the election. If there is any full stop or there some regulations which are required on this, this is one. And second point is today one person may be in X political party before election, and after election that same fellow may be into another political party, or after 1 year maybe another political party like. So it is very difficult to a person like me to identify that fellow with X political party or Y political party if I may be ignoring the observing news like. So how we can stop this type of shifting, if there is any possibility. So these are the two important points which you please answer on.
No, they are important, also difficult to reflect upon. Now, coming to the question of freebies, I think we need to make a distinction between necessary or essential and inessential. Okay, I agree with you that most of the state regimes are going for plethora of inessential freebies. And which in fact are having very serious impact on their fiscal position. I mean, the case of Punjab tops the list, and Andhra also in a very important, significant position in this fiscal crisis. So therefore, there must be a serious public debate on what is essential. I mean, I would not agree that what is called freebie. I mean, it's a derogatory term in a sense, but I think we need to talk about public safety net and welfare policies, welfare schemes, which are essential, and especially Corona has very clearly brought out the vulnerabilities of large sections of the society. So therefore, I think access to certain minimal kind of safety goods, okay, is essential. Health is one. Education is another one. I mean, scholars, economists like Professor Amartya Sen have been very systematically arguing the case of the necessity of state supporting education and health. If you build that kind of social network, okay, safety network, then I think it's possible for the society to move forward. If you see most of the crisis, if you look at, I mean, I have done some studies on this. If you look at most of these suicide cases, whether it is farmers, artisans, you see the critical point was the health issue. Suppose if the health issue comes in a family, then suddenly the economic resource of that gets dried up, mainly because of the corporate system. So we need to, in light of this, it's necessary to think about and try to find ways of strengthening the public health system and public education system. I mean, certain so-called freebies, like say pension to the old age people, okay, is an important thing. I mean, though I have not done field study, but most of my students, when I interact with them coming from villages, they say that because of this old age pension scheme, most of these old men and women living in the villages, okay, who were basically abandoned by the family, because the family itself is poor, the other able-bodied members of the family go to different places in search of migrate to different places in search of employment. So these people get deserted. Now there is some kind of empowerment because of this state support. So therefore we need to like support to the handicapped, physically challenged. Okay, so we need to think ways of supporting the vulnerable sections of the society, vulnerable in terms of their access to livelihoods, vulnerable in terms of the age and other issues. So it should not be rejection of social welfare measures in toto in the name of freebies. But I agree with you that there must be a very informed critical debate on lest the economies of many states could, fiscal position of many states could easily collapse. Coming to the party defection, I mean, there is an anti-defection law, but there are obviously ways of escaping it, and I mean, in fact, I think in 2014 election, in fact, I was talking to the editor of a newspaper. Newspaper carried the front page, two items on the front page. And the left edge said that the fellow left a party A and joined party B. And the right side, there is the same news item about this person, that he has gone from party A to C and back to A. And within a matter of 24 hours, or less than 24 hours, because the paper covers only limited number of hours, maybe 16 hours. Within the matter of 24 hours, the party fellow has changed 3 parties and gone back to the mother party. And invariably, they will say that this is a big mistake I have done. And the editor of the paper was saying that the person who was covered in the news item was very angry. And he complained to the editor that you have insulted me and all that. The fellow said, this is very curious news. Therefore, we have found it interesting enough to publish. I mean, what I'm trying to suggest is that the defections have reached absurd levels, unimaginably absurd levels. And it involves a deep political and also moral question. Deep political question, because when one stands as a candidate of a political party, he represents certain political position. If not a position, at least certain political posturing. Because as we discussed earlier, there is a large-scale de-ideologization of political parties. And I mean, when you think about a political party, you have certain images of the political party. This political party stands for this. But what we have seen the last several decades is the blurring of these ideological lines between political parties. So it's very difficult because you cannot even go by the manifestos. Manifestos, I mean, does anybody take serious manifestos seriously? When we were students, okay, in fact, I did a paper as part of my MA. Then my professor said, you must read the manifestos of other political parties. Sir, where would I get? No. If you don't get anywhere, you come to me, I will give them. That means in the 1970s and early 80s, scholars used to take manifestos very seriously. Okay. Today, I don't think political parties themselves take manifestos seriously. And if please correct me if I am wrong, I stand for correction, that many political parties very reluctant, either do not issue manifestos or very reluctantly issue the manifestos, mostly on the verge of the election. So how do you assess the political parties and its ideological position? This is the question. So in the context of large-scale depoliticization and de-ideologization of political parties, the candidates, members of the parties, okay, feel free, find a lot of flexible ground to change from one political party to another, because it doesn't in any effective way, okay, impact on their image. Forget about tarnishing the image. But it's not just a question of legal, okay, provisional issue, but there is a deep moral issue involved. I think the educated electorate must be educated and become enlightened enough to ask questions. Okay, not just listen to the speeches, but ask questions to this candidate. Why did you change the parties? I mean, it's become almost a normal thing, normalization of defection. Okay, it's no longer seen. I mean, in fact, I'm very surprised that you are attaching a lot of gravity to this issue. But political parties, politicians do not consider it as an issue at all. It's a very normal thing to move from one party to another. In fact, they might even go and go to the extent of saying that it is the right of freedom to change political parties. Anyway, I can only give that later answer. It is a very serious sociological, moral, ethical issue.
Sir, in
Sir, I
fact,
have a
there is a
question, sir.
move, Dr. Naresh. In fact, there is a move that there's going to be a taxpayers association at all India level. So they will decide hereafter as to how the money paid by them in form of tax will be spent. So, but I don't know how strong that association will be and what would be their voice and all that.
No, I think what we can hope is that that association, if it is properly constituted and effective, would definitely raise a lot of scope for the debate.
Yeah.
It may not affect the policy on the ground, but it definitely raise the level of criticality. And that itself is important contribution.
So let us all hope that that association becomes very strong.
And a similar association must be there to check the defections.
Sir, I have a question, sir. This
Yeah,
morning
please.
I've been reading
Yeah.
the Ramchandra Guha's article,
Ah.
India at 75. I'll just read a last paragraph of that. For a while, India is a formally free nation. Indians are less than free politically, socially, economically, culturally, and institutionally. Much work lies ahead of us. My question is why people are unable to imagine themselves as citizens and still as subjects? And what is hindering this imagination in terms of human rights?
No, this is a, very slow, protracted process. In fact, there is a famous French anthropologist who wrote a book on book titled "Peasant to Citizen." France is one of the oldest democracies. Okay, you have French Revolution in 1789, and the book is written the early part of 20th century. That is almost after 1.5 centuries. The scholar argues that large number of French citizens, French people, do not consider themselves as citizens, but as farmers and different craftsmen and all that. Okay, and any modern state must enforce this, enforce the primacy of its members as citizens. So my point is that when a fairly educated, enlightened, deeply transformed society like France could not enforce this idea of Frenchman as a citizen effectively, that very clearly shows that it's a very slow, protracted process. Okay, and it's not something which could be done only through formal literacy. I think, I would say that one French professor who is a friend of mine said, actually she's an American but lives in France. She says she made a very radical statement. We did some work together. She said that America is an illiterate nation. France is a highly literate nation. I said, how can you say that? Because you're an American. Then she said that even villages, you see people discussing politics, not just local politics, international politics, politics of global warming. Rural people in France, even women, not very educated. So that is the level of political awareness. So not formal literacy. I think we need to have a deep penetrating political awareness. Only then it is possible to. I don't consider this as a failure. If you say that it's a failure, then there is no hope. But it's a reflection of the odious kind of task that is ahead of us. So necessarily there has to be a lot of multifarious, multidimensional kind of effort.
Thank you,
It's
sir.
definitely a limitation.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think now it's almost time for everyone's lunch. So
Yeah, it's 1:30.
if anyone has any question, you can just pass on to me, and then I'll pass on to Professor Srinivaslu, so that you can have some interaction. Sir, if you don't mind, can you just tell either your mobile number or email, so that if any one of them has any question, they can pass it.
It is Srinivasulu, SRINIVASULU, Curly, KRLI, all small letters. Srinivasulu Curly @gmail.com.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
I
madam.
think,
Yeah.
Dr. Jacob.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Jacob is invisible.
Yeah. So, am I audible, ma'am?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You're audible.
Yeah.
Sir, you can start your video, sir. Jacob, sir.
Before Jacob presents vote of thanks, I just would like to make an announcement that we are going to have national anthem after this vote of thanks, and then all of you please close your videos and stand up for the national anthem, and also you can sing using unmuting yourself, and then we can quit the meeting. So because this is something what we are doing to commemorate or to celebrate the occasion of the 76th Independence Day, or on completion of the 75 years Azadi Ka Amruth Mahostav. So we felt that definitely national anthem must be there. So now can you please, Dr. Jacob, can you please?
No, one second, madam. Just this has gone. Yeah. So, thank you, ma'am. Respected Presidium and respected Senior Professor V. Ushakar, ma'am, Honorary Director, ICSSR SRC, and Dean Faculty of Commerce, and General Secretary, Indian Accounting Association, Hyderabad, who is presiding over this event. Respected today's speaker, Professor K. Srinivasulu, sir, retired professor from Department of Political Science, former Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences, and Senior Fellow, ICSSR, and Professor K.V. Chalapati, sir, who is a former President, Indian Accounting Association, and Professor D. Obul Reddy, sir, President, Indian Accounting Association, Hyderabad branch, and Senior Professor V. Apparao, sir, Junior President, Indian Accounting Association, Hyderabad branch, and the conveners of this program, CMA, Dr. Gaddam Naresh Reddy Garu, and Treasurer, Indian Accounting Association, and Mr. Venkatesh Maddani, and co-opted EC member of Indian Accounting Association. It is a great honor to propose the vote of thanks on this occasion, which is this is a lecture series which is being organized from ICSSR SRC, and this is first lecture in the series to commemorate the 75 years of Indian independence and the aegis of Azadi Ka Amruth Mahotsav. I would like to express my deep gratitude to our Senior Professor V. Ushakar, ma'am, for taking up this initiative and to organize the lecture series to commemorate the 75 years of Indian independence. And I would like to place on record my heartfelt vote of thanks to our distinguished speaker, Professor K. Srinivasulu, sir, and for that insightful and thought-provoking lecture on the topic India after independence, mapping the 75 years of journey. And sir, you have taken us through the entire macro trajectory of the macro view of the journey after independence, and you have by presenting the central central ideas which are important to the modern nation state: citizenship, the representation, and the federalism and state versus central. So, and such a wonderful speech. We thank you very much for accepting our invitation and not sparing your time and giving this wonderful lecture on the today's very, very important theme on the occasion of this Azadi Ka Amruth Mahotsav. And I express my heartfelt thanks to Professor K.V. Achalpati, sir, for his initial remarks on the theme of the lecture. And I would also give my hearty vote of thanks to Professor D. Obul Reddy, sir, President IAA Hyderabad branch, and also Senior Professor V. Apparao, sir, Junior President Hyderabad Indian Accounting Association. And I would like to thank the conveners of this program, this lecture, Dr. Gaddam Naresh Reddy Garu and also Venkatesh Madeni. And my heartfelt thanks to all faculty members and students from all over India who have actively participated in this program, office bearers and EC members of Indian Accounting Association, Hyderabad, and other dignitaries for our participation. And I'm happy to express my thanks to the staff of SRC and also office bearers of IAA who have greatly helped us in organizing this event. I also thank our media and press persons covering this event. Once again, I thank you all for your cordial cooperation and thank you all. With this, over to the chair of the session. Thank you.
Yeah, let us stand and sing national anthem.
पंजाब सिंध यमुना करते रहे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय जय है
Thank you very much. I think we can quit.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you all for active participation in the program. Thank you.
Hello. Hello.